Clip 24D on climate. Real true educational, not fake news. And I have to do this in location, and I have to get a few cattle to cooperate, so I'll hurry up. Now, what's happened over the last 20 years is several shiploads of eco-warriors headed north and south to try and prove that the Arctic ice caps are melting. And when they got near it, they discovered they're not melting at all. And that's all nonsense. And if you in fact check the Port Cap Norris Jessup archives, you'll get it online. There's a weather station in Greenland, and that weather station shows back to 2005 that there's no change in climate. And there's one called Andaman Scott in the South Pole, and it also shows the same. But anyway, when they got up there, they eventually got bogged down, and they knew they had the comfort of helicopters and all the modern equipment to rescue them. So they stayed a while, and they soon had to come home and admit that there was no, the ice caps were not melted. Meanwhile, anyway, an odd bear would arrive, and this famous picture appeared. One of them is one of a polar bear supposedly stranded on ice. Now, if I get it the right side up, there it is there. It's a bit hard to see it, it's in black and white. But you know that these exist. But another famous one was this one. And this is the only version of it left on the internet. Now, it's very hard to see it. It's a polar bear stranded on ice. I don't know whether you can see it there. And he's on a piece of ice, okay? Might show it to you again, but I want to hurry here for a good reason. What actually happened was the polar bears came over, just like cattle, out of curiosity, and you can see cattle here. And they were just looking at them and wondering what was going on. But they started throwing out scraps of food, an odd kippered herring, and stuff like that. And of course the polar bears were glad of anything they were getting free, especially something tasty, and they assembled round. And because the ice wasn't solid everywhere and there were chunks of ice, the polar bears got up on the ice and they photographed them. And they then tried to pretend that this was polar bears in distress. So I'm going to do something here now. So here is a saucepan full of high protein beef nuts. And I'm now going to introduce this to these cattle, and this is the same effect as nice food would have on polar bears. Yes. Now, no countryman will be the slightest bit surprised at what happened there. They're all gathered around the food, and they're watching more. Some of them are eating it, some of them are watching for more because there's only so many of them can actually get it. And we can see here, if I move the camera, that they're curious animals as well, and polar bears are no different. But you can see them all there, the ones that know that those beef nuts are there, and they always give us a little bit of graphics on the plop side, come around and eat it, and they assemble around. And if you look at the moment, all of these cattle, well, most of them tend to be looking this way because they know there's something unusual about what I am doing. I wouldn't normally be doing this, and so they're curious, and the polar bears were curious. Anyway, sorry for the camera work won't win any Oscars, but that's the situation. So the animals are looking for the feed, for the meal, and some of them are actually bawling they can't get out to it. They know there's food. They have an instinct for food, and these cattle tend to understand there's something going on and possibly a bit of food, and they know from the moves of other ones and the behaviour of other ones there's some food going. In any event, the photograph of the bear was published, and some of our people copped them on and realised what was going on. These bears weren't distressed at all. In fact, they're growing in numbers. And I have here a printout from the world's leading journal on original science research, global news and community. Right? Read that again to you. The world's leading journal of original science research, global news and community. It's called AAAS. Now I'm not sure what that stands for, but it has all the usual internet. It's a genuine thing from this crowd, and it says science. You can Google it yourself, AAAS. And they say, this is dated the 7th of May 2010, and they say the image associated with this article was selected by the editors. Of course it was. It was selected by the editors. Yeah. Why? Because they thought it was going to fool us into thinking that this was real evidence of global warming. We did not realise that it was not an original photograph, but a collage. It was a computer-generated assortment of various photographs. They stuck bits of one on another, same as if somebody stuck the head of a photograph of the head of some famous person onto my body or something like that. So to read that again, we did not realise that it was not an original photograph, but a collage, and it was a mistake to have used it. It's there. That's their admission. But this is not an isolated incident. They had done this several times, and it was put on some journals. I'm not sure which ones it was put into, but it was on the front page in dentist surgeries where everyone going in saw this. Oh, look what's happening. And it was an utter and damnable lie. An utter and damnable lie. And as these lies are pushed out, the people that I've named in the earlier clips who dissent from this view that 97% of scientists agree that there's man-made global warming, they try to debunk it. And you have the Global Warming Policy Foundation, you have What's Up With That, you have the Irish Energy Blog, and you have several other people trying to break through and explain that we're being cheated. But never on any of the mainstream media. You won't get that on the Irish Times, the Irish Independent, the Sunday Business Post. You won't hardly ever maybe get it on the Sunday Times either. You won't get it on national broadcasters in Ireland, the BBC, or anywhere else, or on CNN, because they're all in a conspiracy, and I don't like using conspiracy theories. It's not done. It's done by telling you all one side of the story and not telling you the other. So in any event, I've shown you that you can gather any creature around you by offering it food. I'm sure they got a few kippered herrings brought there in a ship powered by fossil fuel, refrigerated by electricity generated by a diesel engine on board. Most ships have 4 diesel engines. Some small ones have 2 large diesel engines. It was cooked over fossil fuel. It was smoked over wood, perhaps, and it was caught using trawlers using fossil fuel, and it was transported using fossil fuel, and all of the ancillary services surrounding it used some sort of fossil fuel. And so it was great to be able to offer it up to the polar bears, but they of course appreciated a tasty morsel, and what polar bear wouldn't? So you can see here, and the reason I do this here in the field is to show the behaviour of animals. They're curious. They don't just ignore a large ship arriving into their environment, any more than these cattle will have a look around at this. But as time drags on, as you stay here, we find that they don't bother. They tend to wander off. And I have one lady here who's here too, and she knows there's something unusual. She's wondering what's going on, and cattle are like that, and so I'm sure are bears. And they capitalised on this behaviour to fool us and to lie to us and to make us think that this was evidence of global warming. So here is the photograph again. I'll bend it up and show it to you, but it can't be got anywhere online. It's taken down essentially, and here we are here. I think you can just about see it there. Right, you see it there. This is that famous photograph of the polar bear, and he wasn't stranded at all. He swam out there, and he got up on that, and even at that they produced an artificial photograph. We don't exactly know if there was ever a bear there. We're not sure. They manufacture the whole thing, all a total fraud, And it's just another way for me to try and get across to you. If we had proper media, I wouldn't need to be doing this. I wouldn't need to be trying to come out here into fields and do things like this. We don't have a proper media. We're the victims of a huge fraud by the media. And you've never ever heard global warming, climate change discussed on RTE, our national broadcaster. Years ago you'd have the Late Late Show and there'd be war on that place. There'd be debating topical issues. It's all suppressed now. They tell you the science is settled. It's all over. Well, who decides it's settled? Only the establishment. And why do they want us to do that? They want us to believe that it is settled. So we keep digging our hands in our pockets, and they can bring in their communist ideology and their kill off any democracy we have and subject us to a vast global control that we submit to. And these animals here are going to be part of the whole scheme of things. In their view, they have to go. So I leave it at that. I'm getting a bit of appreciation here from one or two animals, and I'll leave it at that. But just want to bring that to your attention. You can Google any of that. Essentially what the eco warriors and the pro-green people did was they faked photographs of polar bears supposedly in distress over what they say was the melting of the Arctic ice, which it was all a huge and massive lie, massive piece of deception. And even here, one of my last animals, if I can show it, is going off. She's sick of me, and that's it. We'll let you go at that. I have to hold the camera here. We'll let you go, and thank you very much for just listening in, and I hope that was some use.